Hello everyone. Today we will be looking at a chapter called Should Wizard Hit Mummy, written by John Updike. It was a Saturday evening. Every evening Jack told his daughter, Jo, a story out of his head. This custom began when she was 2. Now he had been telling her bedtime stories for almost 2 years. His story had a central character named Roger, a small creature. It could be Roger Fish, Roger Squirrel, or Roger Chipmunk. Today it was Roger Skunk. This Roger Skunk smelled so bad that none of the other woodland creatures would play with him. They called him Stinky Skunk, and then they would run away. Roger Skunk would stand there all alone. Tears would fall from his eyes. Joe asked if he would not see the owl. Jack said that Roger Skunk walked along very sadly to a very big tree. There was a huge, wise old owl on the top most pointed end of the tree. Roger Skunk told the owl that all the other animals ran away from him because he smelled very bad. The owl admitted that he did so. Roger Skunk cried very hard. He wanted to know what he could do. The owl suggested going to the wizard. The owl advised Roger Skunk to go through the woods under the apple trees into the swamp, and there would be the wizard's house over a creek. On reaching the little white house, Roger Skunk rapped on the door. A tiny little old man came out with a long white beard and a pointed blue hat. He observed that the creature smelled awful. Roger Skunk said the huge wise owl had told him that he would help him. The wizard found his magic wand and asked Roger Skunk what he wanted to smell like. Roger thought and said, "Roses." He chanted a magic spell. All of a sudden, the whole inside of the wizard's house was full of the smell of roses. The wizard asked 7 pennies for the walk. Roger Skunk had only 4 pennies and he began to cry. The wizard directed him to go to the end of the lane and turn around 3 times and look down the magic well. Roger Skunk did so and found 3 pennies in the magic well. He took them to the wizard. He was now very happy. He ran out into the woods. The other creatures gathered round him because he smelled very good. They played various games the children play. They played and laughed all afternoon. Then it began to get dark. They all ran to their mummies. Joe thought that the story was all over. Jack didn't like that she should take anything for granted. He continued the story further. Roger Skunk's mother asked him about that awful smell. He was surprised and added that he smelled like roses. She then asked who had made him smell like that. He said that it was the wizard. Mummy asked him to come with her, and they were going right back to that awful wizard. Roger Skunk protested that all other animals would run away again. She said that he used to smell the way a little skunk should have. She took an umbrella and went back with Roger Skunk. She hit the wizard right over the head. The wizard said, "Okay." Roger Skunk smelled very bad again. He no longer smelled like that of roses. Jo put her hand out to touch his lips and said, "Then the wizard hit her on the head and did not change that little skunk back." Her father continued the story in his own fashion. Skunk and his mother went home. They heard the sound of the train when Daddy arrived home. They had their supper. Jack described the various items of their supper and the story was over. But Joe did not like the ending of the story, so she said that was a stupid mummy. Jack said she wasn't so. Joe felt he was defending his own mother to her or something as odd. Jack asked her to put her head in the pillow and have a good long nap. Jo asked her father to tell her the story the next day that wizard took that magic wand and hit that mummy right over the head. Jack said that that was not the story. He stressed the point. Little Skunk loved his mummy more than he loved all the other little animals, and his mummy knew what was right. Joe again asked her father to say the next day that the wizard hit that mummy. She insisted that he should say so. Jack promised to see to it. He asked her to have a rest and stay on the bed. He praised her as a good girl. Jack closed the door and went downstairs. His wife, Claire, had spread the newspaper and opened the paint can. She was wearing an old short office on top of her maternity smock. She was stroking the chair rail with a dipped brush. He heard footsteps upstairs. He shouted to beat Jonah on the buttocks. Then the footstep wavered. And that's how this story ends. But before that, we should know that as a dad, Jack was trying to give the best lesson to his child through stories, like to face the difficulties, and life is not always about rainbows and cupcakes.